What up, pimp? Setting the timer for 30 minutes. I encourage you to stick around if you want to train your patience. I don't know, train your brain. Um, Today's a really interesting topic that I thought of in the shower that I really like, and I was supposed to talk about. By supposed to, I mean I wanted to initially talk about anxiety, but I think that's oversimplified. I think what's really worth talking about is isolation and how it can contribute to anxiety. But also, I realize that isolation also really heavily contributes to creativity. So you might be using isolation to be more creative or do the things that you want to do privately, and it could fulfill you in that way. But maybe isolation is also causing some anxiety for you, because it definitely is for me, or it has for me in the past. For those of you who don't know, I used to be pretty agoraphobic. I used to not be able to leave my house, in terms of if I would drive 5 minutes or so, it would be a nightmare situation. Like if I had to drive anywhere that wasn't further than 3 minutes away, I'd be freaking out, which is so strange because my job is to talk and make funny, and that's abnormal. It feels like, like when I had agoraphobia really badly, I think I was doing 30 million views a month, which is insane, and just very not making sense, you know. And yeah, I don't know. It was really bad. My anxiety was really bad. Okay, it was really, really bad, and it still exists to this day. Like I have residual anxiety from the pandemic. I have residual anxiety from, stuff from my past. And everybody does in some ways. Like there are things that make you nervous, and there are things that don't. You might have a superpower, going out late at night, partying with your homies and all that stuff. But I bet, that same person, like if you're called on in class in college or in high school or whatever, maybe you're shy, or maybe there are instances where like you would never ever do karaoke, or you would never go, you would have a difficult time giving a speech or something. I don't know. Everybody has their own anxieties, but mine was very particular, and I think it was because I isolated myself intentionally in February of 2020. What I mean by that is I went from living in an apartment in Hollywood, with two roommates, to renting out a townhouse with no roommates. And I rented out this townhouse in a place called Eagle Rock out here in LA. And Eagle Rock is kind of, it's not like a city. It's not like Hollywood at all. It's very mellow. Like where I lived in particular, I had to drive 5 minutes to get to a Starbucks. And going from Hollywood, where I could walk to any restaurant or coffee shop I wanted, period, to this place where everything was a drive, and then the pandemic happened. It just sort of got rid of any sense of community. It got rid of any sense of place or belonging, and lo and behold, it turned me into this agoraphobic guy where going out at all for any reason became a whole to-do. And that was because of isolation. That was absolutely because of isolation, because of me isolating myself. And don't get me wrong, I used isolation initially to boost my creativity. There's a stand-up special with Bo Burnham where at the beginning of it he talks about how he holed himself up He like isolated himself in pursuit of comedy, and that's sort of what I wanted to do. It is not sort of. It is exactly what I was aiming for, and it worked for a while. Like I created the when you accidentally write songs that already exist thing out of that townhouse, that isolated place. I created a lot of really big sketches. I think I had the most viewership ever in terms of like long form content that isn't like YouTube Shorts content when I was isolated. So in terms of creativity, like, look, when you're by yourself and you're not surrounded by noise, your brain kind of cranks up the volume a little bit. Your brain will start throwing things at you. And my brain certainly did a lot of that. It did all kinds of things where it was like, oh, this would be funny, that would be funny, this would be funny. Like ideas just start popping up out of nowhere. It was like my antenna was finely tuned to my surroundings. And, so for that reason, me choosing to isolate myself in pursuit of creativity, in pursuit of comedy, was effective. But the other side of that coin was it made me very, very anxious. And, I do have residual dregs of anxiety from that period of my life. Where, for example, if you invite me out after 6 p.m. ever, I'm probably not going to go. I'm not going to do it. I don't know what it is. If it's nighttime, if the sun is down, I'm not going to go. Coffee? Yes. I'm a morning person. I'm down. I'm down with it, okay? I'm with that, all right? Anything else? Nah, I don't want to see you. It's not a you thing even. It's just like I don't know. It's a thing that I have. It's not great, but I'm accepting it. I'm learning about it. There's a book called Goodbye Social Anxiety that I'm reading, and I'm trying to get better at it. And what's interesting too is like because of who I am in terms of like my relationship with BetterHelp as a sponsor, I pretty publicly talk about my woes with anxiety and how I went on there and I had I found a therapist that I really love and work with her still and she's helping me get through it. But dude, I was lost before that. I was really lost. But she gave me a lot of tools to use, like box breathing, where you like control your kind of nervous system's response to stress or panic, or thinking about things like what's the worst thing that could possibly happen, and then what's the best thing that could possibly happen, and then what is the likely scenario, and thinking things like that to like get rid of this catastrophic thought process was very helpful. But I feel like this idea of isolation, okay, just to sort of round it out for you, isolation is a tool for creativity. I know that for sure. I know that firsthand. Isolation, holding yourself up somewhere in a quiet place, is absolutely a highly, highly effective tool to boost your creativity, to boost your ideas. You're running a failing business, you isolate yourself, man. There was this course, Harvard Business School online or something. I did like a demo. And it talked about how this one guy, it talked about management strategy. And it said that the most effective thing that great leaders do is they have meetings with the self. That's like journaling or really analyzing and thinking about, all right, what should we do? Planning, and I feel like that's extremely true. And for people who don't isolate, for people who are surrounded by others all the time, 24/7, maybe you don't have a strong sense of compass. Maybe you don't have as strong a sense of like direction. Maybe your drive isn't as high. I'm speculating, by the way. I don't mean to be insulting anybody, but if you isolate and analyze and think and let silence happen from time to time, your brain is going to crank up the volume and your brain is going to create stuff for you to think about. That's why, some people are really anxious at night because it's the first time they let their brain talk to you. Like there's some weird subliminal thing that occurs, man, when you're isolated, when you're by yourself. It's a weapon. Isolation is a weapon. You go to prison, the worst thing that could happen to you is being put in solitary confinement. That's the worst thing that could happen to you. They use it against you, you know? So it's a powerful thing. It's like nuclear power. It's like it can either be a nuclear weapon or nuclear energy. You have to decide where on the spectrum you lie of isolation. Are you isolating too much so you're anxious, or are you isolating just the right amount to where it becomes this creative superpower that you have? There's this book called The Artist's Way that highly encourages you to write 3 pages by hand every morning, no matter what. I haven't done this. I mean, I have done it, but I just don't do it consistently. And I think the effectiveness of that is just simply by you having that meeting with yourself and you being isolated and really like honoring and cherishing your thoughts, you know? For me, my very best ideas come out of that, always, consistently. However, if you do it too much and the volume of your brain is too high, that's where anxiety comes in. You know, for me, that's social anxiety. And the byproducts of that seep into my day-to-day life to where I have to go the other side of the spectrum, where I have to choose to not be isolated as much. I have to choose to go out at night. Like I have to choose to go for a drive to the beach at 9 p.m. and people watch like a weirdo. I have to choose to go to the coffee shop and get coffee as opposed to making something at home. I have to choose to call somebody when I go for a walk. I have to choose to not isolate myself as much in order to give myself this like exposure therapy almost and be able to people again. The pandemic took that away from us, man. It took away from us the ability to people as well. And now I talked about this last time, but we really are this sort of hybrid species now. We're the cyborg species. And I think we're confusing online interaction, not this per se, but like you DMing somebody, you messaging somebody as real one-on-one interpersonal communication. I can message 100 people every day. And but the weight of an in-person interaction is, 100 times higher. Don't trick yourself into isolating too much. I've done that. I do that all the time. And so I have to kind of force myself into it. But again, the thesis of this video is isolation and its relationship to anxiety, and isolation and its relationship to creativity, because it's both. It's responsible for both. And you have to start thinking and identifying which side of that spectrum do I fall. You could. I do. I have to constantly think about that. It's tricky, man. It's like, what's the right amount? What's the balance? Everything is in balance, right? If you're at home watching this right now, it's just you and me. I think about this, like, how much do you isolate yourself? Would you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert? Would you consider yourself somebody who needs to be surrounded by people at all times? If so, are you frustrated that you're not putting out as much as you want to put out? If so, are you doing anything about that? When was the last time you journaled? When was the last time you sat down, set a timer for 30 minutes and just looked at a blank sheet of paper and started writing? Is that even something you want to do? Like, it doesn't even have to be creativity. It could be like a business plan. It could be to be in a better relationship with your partner. It could be to be a better boss, a better employee, a better friend, a better daughter, a better son, a better lover, a better whatever, man. Have you spent that time? Have you had that meeting with yourself? I think that's why people like church so much, is because they're able to actually take that time to reflect on their life. It's the one sacred time per week where you really do think about the choices that you've made, where you do think about the consequences of your actions, how you make other people feel, etc. I'm not, a religious guy, but there is something sacred to having that meeting, having that introspection, there are some tethers, there are some ties that like all human beings have in common. We all have this desire to progress in some way. And I have this theory, actually Tony Robbins has this theory, and I know that he's sort of a, not everybody likes Tony Robbins, but he helped me out a lot when I was stressing out in college and stuff, so I like Tony Robbins. But he has this idea that happiness is progress. Happiness is progressing at something, progressing at a skill. Maybe you're on YouTube and you're watching your numbers go up. It's looking at numbers go up in a bank. It's looking at your relationship getting stronger. It's looking at you losing weight or gaining muscle or whatever. It's you getting accepted to college. Any metric of progress. Yeah, I'm looking at progress on the screen right now. Any metric of progress probably makes you feel a little happier. Probably makes you feel a little bit happier. And oh yeah, let me destroy these flowers. Oh yeah. And the way to do that effectively, dude, I am wrecking this garden. Oh my gosh, I should have done a hedge trimmer. The way to progress effectively, to me in my little brain, is to spend that time by yourself, to have that meeting with self, to value the time that you spend alone, to value your mind, to value your space, your time, your brain. Listen to your gut instinct. You know how they say listen to your gut? How are you going to be able to listen to your gut if you are drowning yourself in noise? How, dude? After this video, I really, I encourage you to freaking just sit there for 15 minutes. Set a timer like this one. Set a timer for 15 minutes and just an acoustic journal. When I say acoustic, I mean a freaking sheet of paper. And not an iPad or a laptop. And just write down your thoughts, dude. Just write them down. 15 minutes. You got that. You can do that. Spending time, that whole phrase. Invest time in yourself, in your gut instincts, and how you feel. You know what I do sometimes? This is probably TMI. Well, no, it's not. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll record myself talking like this on my phone or on my computer, and just make myself speak as plainly and as honestly as possible. Like I'm very cerebral. I'm a very cerebral guy. I just grew up that way to where I had to be. And it's hard for me to tell how I feel about things sometimes. It's really hard for me to do that. And oh yeah, freaking nail these flowers. I'm gonna ruin her garden. She's gonna love that. I'm assuming it's a girl boss who owns this place. But it's the one sacred time and opportunity that I get to really see how I feel about something, because I hide that from myself. Well, I don't know if this is a bit hokey pokey for you, but that's what I'll do. I'll just sit there and I'll talk about how I feel. Sometimes I get a little, drink in me and to let it out more, and then I watch it back, later at a later date and go, oh, that's how I feel. It's almost like a self-therapy session. It's like this analysis of how you feel. If you don't let yourself, if you don't give yourself the space to be human, if you don't give yourself the space to like feel what you need to feel, it's gonna mess you up, man. It's gonna mess you up. It's gonna turn into anxiety. It's gonna turn into a lack of boundaries. It's gonna turn into you being a people pleaser. It's gonna turn into you having bad attention problems because you don't know where your values are. It's gonna turn into a whole thing, a whole shindig, man. Knowing your values, knowing what you cherish in life, like knowing what matters to you and will dictate your actions. It'll dictate the choices that you make. It'll dictate your ability to put your foot down and say, nah, I'm not going out tonight. It's nothing against you. I just don't want to. And that's fine. That's fine. Or it goes, you know what? I've been spending a long time by myself. Sure, I'll take a chance. But just so you know, I get a little anxious. But I'm going to try. I'm going to have a good time. And if you're out there and you're having a horrible time, then leave. Maybe I'm speaking too personally right now because I'm really talking about my own experiences with anxiety and how I just can't go anywhere at nighttime. Again, it's something I'm working on. But look, like, I want you to have tools, all right? I want you at home to have tools that could make you feel a little better. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about your meetings with yourself and your strategy to improve. And where are you in your progress bar? Where are you in your desire to be a better person, to be a better friend, partner, etc.? Like, are you actively working on it? Are you not? Are you happy in your life? Have you actually sat there and thought about the things that you're grateful for? Again, I know this is all really woo-woo or whatever, but it's real stuff. Oh, I'm so close. Where is the rest of the grass? Hold on. I think I push a button and then I can actually see it. Okay, I don't see anything. Did I miss? What did I miss? I'm sure you at home are watching this and you're like, dude, it's so obvious. So that's my big thesis, okay? My big thesis right now is it this? Oh God. I don't know what to do. What did I miss? I'm cutting at the wrong height. How long have I been cutting at the wrong height? Hold on, let me figure this out. 5 to 6 centimeters. How do I see? Okay. My big thesis, the big takeaway here. How much time you spending by yourself? Is it helping you or is it hurting you? You got to figure that out, champ. You got to figure that out. All right? Because for me, it's a nightmare. Can be a nightmare. I think I'm almost done. Oh, there it is. That's what I'm missing. This big chunk right here. And what's funny is I only have to complete 99.5% of this. So when I do this, it's done. And I can technically leave that little patch there and be good. But I'm gonna do a little bit more thorough of a job, or I'm just gonna destroy them, or whatever, man. You know what? The job's complete. It's good enough for me. You know what I'm saying? Good enough for me. I actually finished it this time. I have 5 minutes left. Cool. So we're just gonna talk now. There's a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and he talks about how it's a good idea sometimes to just compliment folks. And I agree. You know, when you're out in the wild, just compliment strangers. Let me see. Yeah, I did it. When you're out in the wild, just compliment folks, compliment strangers, compliment, and be sincere about it too. Because if you habitualize that, you know, maybe it'll help you get over your social anxiety if you have it, if you feel like you're isolated. You clicked on this video because the word isolation was interesting to you. You either are isolating yourself too much or not enough. I'm here to tell you that it's a tool for creativity. It's very powerful, and with great power come great. All right? So use it. You know what I'm saying? Use it. Okay. I think the most successful people in the world are, I guess I mean like happy as well. But in general, the most successful people in business are good at people. The pandemic kind of botched that for me a little bit. It made me not as good at people. I got really good at talking to myself. But when it comes to strangers and like going out and feeling that one-on-one connection with somebody, it's tense for me sometimes. If you ever see me in public, please come say hi. Like I'm good with it. But if I'm, you know, going out with a friend at night, it's going to stress me out. I don't know what that is. Point being, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of force myself to go out more. I'm going to challenge myself to grow, because progress is happiness, and I need to progress in that part of my life. And so I challenge you to analyze parts of your life where you need to progress, and can isolation or not isolation be beneficial to you? Because it's really beneficial. There's a book called The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle, and he talks about deep practice. And it's like where you're doing something, where you're pursuing something, and you furrow your brow, and you're just locked into this like flow state, and you're progressing. And the best way to do that is to be isolated. The best way for me to have this honest conversation with you is for me to be by myself. My cat's over there. You know, I've got coffee here. But the best way for you to progress sometimes is for you to be isolated. Do you have that space for yourself? Do you have an office? Do you have like a closet? Do you have a getaway location? Think about it. That's just my 2 cents. This is coming from a guy who talks to himself for a living, so I don't know how useful this is to you, but I have a feeling there's something in your life that this could work for. Sorry if this came off preachy, this video. The goal is not to be preachy. The goal is to just like have an open dialogue with you where, you know, I think about things in my life and I try to offer them to you. I think there's a part of my brain too that's like, hey, if I die earlier than expected, it might be good to have a bunch of these out there where like, you know, my audience, my family, my friends can see how I really thought about things. And then there's another layer of it too, like, what if I have a kid someday? I want them to see these chapters of my life, and I'm hopeful that you, the person watching this right now, find any of this useful or interesting. All right. Take what you want from that. Thanks for hanging out with me. I can't believe I actually finished this lawn. It wasn't perfect. Should have used a hedge trimmer, and I destroyed some flowers, but we did it. This is a new microphone, by the way. The last one broke. Isn't that crazy? Crazy. So if you think it's hilarious, you're welcome. All right. Have a good day. Okay.